Here's the proposal. Bartok the Magnificent is not just a prequel to Anastasia. Bartok is somehow hundreds of years old because magic, sorcery, and necromancy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Narratives and Nonsense, where friends talking about random and the recent stories, newsworthy and otherwise. Connor, introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's up?
As always, it's the Eldritch Blaster, the five-stringed master, the possessor of no rings, and the goddamn devourer of all of your onion rings. How's everybody? Okay, I hope it's nice for you.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm doing pretty well. It's been a nice chill week. We've had some ups. I will say weather-wise, it's been pretty meh. There's been a lot of like just gray clouds floating overhead. Like it's not hot, it's not cold. It's just kind of mid. But otherwise, I've been doing pretty well. This is Jordan, also Gillidan for the win. And yeah, Connor, how's your week been?
It's been all right. Mostly just been working and at my job and on my my Warhammer army, just kind of getting it painted up and all that kind of stuff. You just introduced a new army. The squats are coming back. It's the League of Votan. The squats were the dwarves back in the day. They've been gone a long time. They were at the best range at the time, but I'm hoping the new refresh is going to be something cool. And I always love dwarves.
Get a rework or a buff type thing.
Yeah, and they're probably going to be part of the Imperium, so I might I already play Space Marines, but maybe I'll try to do some souping and throw some squat guys in there. Or maybe if I get around to a second army, that'll be my next one. But
hell yeah,
that's pretty much the big news in my world.
Nice. On a similar tangent, a while ago I had printed off a mini for one of my not the campaign that I run for you guys, but in the game that I'm playing in someone else's campaign, one of the players sent me like, hey, can you print this out as like my token? So I gave that off to the DM and I'm like, all right, here you are. You have your printed person. Now I need him to paint it for me because I'm not patient enough.
That's true. George's like, that is my part.
I'm like, I'll print it. I'm happy to print it. It takes a little bit. It takes some filament and some heat, but you know what? Let's go.
Setting screen.
Goodness, outside of that, what this last week has been fun and eventful. So, just on Saturday, we started Knights of the Old Republic. I am on my friend Marcus's channel. He's the one that's been guiding me through Halo, and now I'm guiding him through Knights of the Old Republic. That's the old Star Wars game. Came out 2002. We made it as far as past the tutorial, and we are now on Terrace, the first city planet world that you're on. We're getting into the Undercity with all of the Lower City with all the crime gangs and whatnot. It's very exciting, and it's been a pretty interesting time, especially since he's very used to other BioWare games. Like he's done Mass Effect, Dragon Age, what's the other one? Neverwinter Nights, I think.
Ooh.
Like he's played through all of those, so he's like, oh, I recognize this. I recognize all of this. This is nearly as as much of a jump as he might have originally thought, which is really good.
Oh yeah.
Especially because the game itself mechanically, it's pretty dated. It's pretty old.
I really like it though. It's the as far as because it's a lot of it's D&D 3.5 basically.
Absolutely.
That part of it's great.
Yeah.
Getting around is interesting, but
yeah, so that's been really fun. Yeah.
Totally to derail this. KOTOR 1, KOTOR 2. Do you like KOTOR 1 a lot, or are you kind of like me where it's I love when I play through them both, I love to play through 1 just because it's complete, but KOTOR 2 is where I'm heading.
Yeah. And the thing is, to me, Knights of the Old Republic 1, it deserves a lot of the accolades. It's something where
it is a great game. I have no misgivings.
Just well done and well executed, and it's very much a let's capture what the Star Wars experience is in video game format. That's what it is. it's pretty direct with that, and it has a lot of those, like, poetry, it rhymes type things in terms of a Star Wars thing. Like, there's a lot of stuff where you can almost say, like, almost beat for beat, it comes from either episode 4, episode 5, whatever. um but KOTOR 2, in terms of like a lore and the storytelling aspects, that is the game that really dives into the deeper mysteries or understandings of, like, okay, how does this lore work, and dissecting it. The way that I've heard it described is that the people that ended up making KOTOR 2, it didn't end up going to BioWare, it was given to Obsidian, and the people that ended up writing for it really didn't like a lot of the stuff in Star Wars, because it is very, black and white, good, evil, light side, dark side type stuff. And with KOTOR 2, it really dissects it. I've heard the comparison that, like, it does for Star Wars what, like, Deep Space Nine does for Star Trek. I can't say anything of that comparison. I wouldn't know, because I haven't watched any of the Star Trek stuff besides, like, the recent reboot. But
I would very much agree with that.
yeah, it's the idea that it really just goes straight into the, all right, we have some
Really
big questions
digs
that
down
need
into the
asking.
layers of it, like pulling it apart and like looking at it all, like very
Yeah.
like Alan Moore, very
Yeah.
deconstructive.
Exactly. Very, very deconstructive in a constructive way. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's so good.
exactly. Like, you deconstruct to reconstruct.
Yeah.
I've always loved it, and honestly, as far as like just as a person, that game, like, I was that is the perfect game for the phrase of I was a different person after playing that game than when I started.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really the intent with it, which is really good.
And Obsidian is great. They made Fallout New Vegas. They're the best. Love it. So
So outside of that, goodness, there was all sorts of other stuff. I got it together, and I watched the first 2 episodes of the Halo show. I've been really liking it. Since I'm kind of experiencing Halo as a whole right now.
it's a good way to do it,
the
story wise.
right now we're on ODST, and having like, as of the time of this recording, we've hopefully finished ODST, but going into that campaign was such a, like, breath of fresh air, interesting dive into things, just in terms of how the story is being told. I don't think thus far, I don't think there's a lot given in terms of the lore that's actually, like, happening. Like, you don't get a world building in a
A
grand
lot of it
sense.
is ODST is set. I can't
Yeah.
remember the name of that city, but a lot of that lore is in kind of the other Halo games, because that's like kind of a contributor event. But like, if you
Yeah.
did just go into that like not knowing anything about Halo,
Yeah.
you would be very lost.
I think it's it might be New Mombasa is the city.
Yeah, yeah, it's before it got blown
It
up.
feels like it's something where, if I were to be one of those people that went as far as, like, reading books and comics and stuff, the all the secondary storytelling, I might enjoy ODST that much more. I don't know how many, like, cameos there are or anything like that, or Easter eggs for people that have gone through to sit through it. I know, like, with Marcus sitting beside me, he's pointed out that like, some of the enemy types that show up, because you fight elites in Halo 2, and this is, like, just between Halo 2 to Halo 3, like, in that same battle on Earth for the few moments that you're on Earth in Halo 2. And this is the in-universe, like, oh, we're gonna show that the brutes have been there this whole time thing. It's interesting in that sense, but it is very, it's very much a different pace, which I like. Halo as a whole thus far has been very space operatic, and this feels more like a war. And my understanding is Reach is going to feel that much more so. But in terms of the show thus far, there's only been 2 episodes. It dives more into Master Chief's background for Halo. It's a retelling, almost prequel to Halo 1,
Mm,
where they're just finding out that that first Halo ring exists, and I'm excited to see how they go about it. Apparently a lot of the like diehard fans don't like it as much because of either characters that exist in the lore and storytelling and stuff, and I feel like I don't care. As somebody that is newer, it's this weird experience where I feel like what a lot of people might have felt for, say, like going into some of the Star Wars stuff that exists, where they're like, oh, it's like it's references to this, that, the other. I I feel like with Star Wars stuff, Star Wars auxiliary projects, TV shows, etc. Every time that they reference things that exist, to me, I just kind of accept like, okay, cool, this is how they're gonna go about it. Do I like it more or less? Not necessarily, but they're telling a different story. A great example would be 3D Clone Wars. Grievous is a pushover. 2D Clone Wars Grievous is a horror villain, and that's one of those things where I just kind of accept it as like, yeah, I like one thing better than the other, but I'm not hurt. I'm not offended by it. I feel like that's something
the
where
way
with
to be.
Halo, I'm in that same camp of like, I actually really enjoy the show because there is just not storytelling in the campaign as far as like deeper motivational
Oh
type
yeah.
stuff and lore and whatnot. And so I get to see a side of the Halo universe that I otherwise would have not been exposed to. How
Well,
much I
and
can say that carries through with the rest of the games, shrug. We're gonna find out, but yeah, it's weird.
I'm the same in that like I've never read any of the books, but I've heard that apparently Master Chief is very different in the books as well than he is from like the games or probably the show. So I'd be
Yeah,
curious to know on that
I
one. I
I
do
think in
kind of get it because like when they did like the Halloween remake and we saw
yeah
more of Michael Myers' backstory, it was kind of bad, but I obviously don't know how they've done it yet because I haven't seen any of it.
yeah
But I
without
can
diving into
tend to rely
spoilers,
on that.
I don't think there is much of a difference between video game Master Chief that I've seen thus far and movie Master Chief, with the one exception, and that's spoiler visual reveal type stuff that I won't talk about. But in terms of like the mannerisms, I mean, it's very clearly it's a different actor because they didn't get the voice actor to like physically be Master Chief in the
Yeah.
show. But the very like cut and dry responses thing has felt very in tune with what I've seen from the video games. Um, so it really does feel like it's the people that have like read books on Halo, which is kind of like a proof of concept tech demo from way back in the day in the 2000 flat for originally Apple and then eventually Bungie and then Microsoft. Like it went a full 180 for development. It to me, I feel like it's diving into things that I actually might have wanted to see from the campaigns. So I'm excited to see where it goes. Some of the visuals are kind of meh, but the others are very impressive. So it's this weird balance of like, oh, that looks video gamey, like, but then other points it's like, holy shit, they poured money into this clearly. I don't know. There's something weirdly inconsistent with some of the visuals. Generally, though, I have been liking them. Uh, the sound design is frickin' I've been enjoying that. But yeah, the Halo show, that's been pretty cool. There's also Moon Knight, which popped up, and that I will say, first episode of Moon Knight I enjoyed exceptionally better than the Halo show. That's not to say that I didn't like the Halo show. I like both, but I have liked Moon Knight more. We're only one episode in, and it's like, all right, I'm sucked in. I'm strapped to my chair. I'm buckled up. Let's see what the next episode ride will be. Um, but yeah, that's show stuff. What outside of that, video game things, we finished Kingdom Hearts 1. John has finally completed the first task. He has returned with the elixir, kind of, on his hero's journey. and I can't wait for for the Chain of Memories experience because that's where shit gets bonkers.
Oh,
Oh my god, he literally like almost glared at me when the guy said to find is to lose and to lose is to find, and he just looked at me like, are you shitting me right now? I'm like, oh boy, here we go. He has no idea. Oh man,
jeez.
so that's gonna be really fun. It's just getting started. It's just Chain of Memories. Like, for him to get to like Dream Drop Distance or something, or shoot, even like 358 days over two.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's gonna be so silly. So yeah, that's updates for me. Outside of that, I mean, there's some fun news stuff if we want to dive into that. Um, but my gosh. Oh, on a similar note, actually, and this pertains to you, tomorrow Lego Star Wars comes out April 5th. For when this posts, and I am so freaking excited. I went through and I watched some of like the gameplay footage and the like, and it feels both different and familiar to like the old Lego Star Wars games. Like, it still very much has the silly humor, the puzzle elements, but um the like for shooting, it is like pseudo third person over the shooter, over the shoulder shooter mechanics. um that's something that is very different from how it used to be with the older games. It's like little things like that where it feels a little bit more engaging. And then you have the option for mumble mode, which is basically just how the old video games were, where it's just or the voice acting has been pretty impressive too. For the gameplay demos and whatnot that
Yeah.
I've seen, it's fully voice acted, and
We gonna do it voice acted or mumble?
I don't know. I originally I was thinking we go through mumble mode, but
It's hard for me to say no to some good voice acting. Though.
yeah, that's the thing. Is I was just like, oh damn. And here's one of the bigger
Because
reasons.
at this point, I just like voice actors for some reason. I don't know
Right.
why. I have no idea. I just like.
No, absolutely. And the thing that like really took me aback, they had some of the footage for I think it was for episode 3. It was one of the prequels that they had on the gameplay demo, and the voice actors, they got James Arnold Taylor and Matt Latner to do Obi-Wan and Anakin from the Clone Wars. So you get the Clone Wars
nice.
voice actors in there, and then you have the Clone Wars battle droids doing their thing. Like, you have all of the like the good shit. So I'm very excited for it.
I think I'm gonna have to veto mumble mode.
Yeah, like, and it's purely because of that. Like, I know that there's the voice acting for the original and sequel trilogy, but like for the prequels, they got all the good shit. Like, they have
Yeah.
the guy that does Dooku. I'm just like, I'm very excited for it. Yeah.
Did you ever play through Saints Row 3 with the zombie voice on?
Play through it? No, but used it.
Or did you ever try to realize what it was and then go, I want to understand what my character's saying? Go back.
Yeah, it's oh god,
Definitely didn't do that.
I did one of the, because in Saints Row 3 you have the hospitals where you can go in and like recustomize your character with surgery or whatever.
Yeah.
I did that, and at one point I like went full zombie for, I don't know, like a good hour probably, and I went, all right, I actually do like some of the quips that happened in that game.
Well, and my thought was, oh, I'll pick zombie, and the voice and like the captions will tell me what they're saying.
It's like,
no,
no.
it's just with the zombie noise. It's like rah 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 rah.
Yeah.
Even it's like, oh god.
Saints Row knows what it's doing. I have very little faith that the reboot is going to be as zany, but maybe for the better, given how zany the old stuff was.
Because see, I didn't play Saints Row 3 until it got zany, or Saints Row until it got zany. I never
That's
played
true.
1 or 2.
That's the
I've
thing, where
only
it's
played
like,
3.
I played 3 and 4. 4, it's DLC.
It was
that
a
they
little
made
too.
into a game. I played a little bit of Get Out of Hell and just went.
I did not like Get Out of Hell.
Yeah.
Like, if I didn't get that with the game when I bought it, I would not have.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of feels like Saints Row 3 is like this flash in the pan. Like, here's like the creme de la creme. This is their magnum opus. I don't know if they'll ever
Seriously.
recapture that, especially with how like GTA exists with being this online moddable. Let's just throw whatever we want at a wall and
And make
make it. Like,
billions.
how do you do that from a developer standpoint now when everybody else will just make it for you?
No kidding.
Um,
Well, and that's the thing with Saints Row 3. There was no expectations, so they were given lots of leeway, and that's why it
yeah,
was so good. But as soon as you get that success,
it's
that
like,
leeway
oh,
goes away.
do it again, and they're like, ugh.
Yeah. And they're like, literally just do it again.
We're like, but the
Whereas
fun.
before it was, whatever.
Where's the
Do
creative
whatever the fuck you
freedom?
want. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That, it's you gotta love business.
yeah.
Just how she goes.
Absolutely. Well, going on from that, we'll transition to some lighthearted news things. We'll breeze through them. One thing that I really wanted to talk about because it's pretty cool and I'd love to see it implemented elsewhere is in Amsterdam. Apparently, they figured out that if you lay pipe and just let air flow through it, um, there's a lot of little benefits that you wouldn't get with, say, a net or something. And the reason I bring this up is in terms of being like an ecologically friendly solution. Um, by using bubbles, they've been able to really effectively pick up any like plastic waste or trash that is floating around in the river. It brings it up to the surface, and then you can kind of like cart it over to like a little deployable, whether it's a trap or a net or what have you on the side. By using bubbles, they've been able to like take out the metric they used was 86% of the trash that is floating downriver. Like it really is
Jeez.
just, given that it's as I guess mundane as I would think, you're just blowing bubbles in a river.
Yeah.
Um, it seems to be very effective. So it's a way of like catching pollution before it makes its way to the ocean. But on top of that, some of the other benefits is um, you oxygenate the water. And when I say that, I mean by putting oxygen into the water, you make it so that toxic algae is less likely to grow. Usually, when you have a oxygen deprived environment, you let things like algae and plant life expound that much more. That's something where it helps keep the ecosystem a little bit more balanced. It's friendly to fish and to boats. Like a fish is able to move through just fine. It's not like hindered in that process. But it also is almost like an underwater sound barrier. So you just reduce some of the sound pollution of having larger ships like boats coming through. And the boats really do not care on the surface like at all.
Yeah.
So it's something where they've got it in one of its canals and canals, what canals? Jesus. They've got it in one of its canals, and at this point, investors are looking to institute it as being a solution for more places. So that was something that was really really cool for like diving in a little bit more specifically. Likewise, like on the EU side,
I always
they've
like really simple stuff like that. Like just pump some
yeah
bubbles up there.
yeah it's one of those like it's elegant, it's simple, it's not this like over engineered thing where it's like, okay, let's make like net robots that hunt trash plastic
Yeah.
specifically that
There. Yeah.
yeah, and it's
It's
like,
like the
oh
people that just went out to the BP oil spill and were like, I'm just gonna shop vac water out.
yeah, yeah, it really
Works.
is that direct, and that's the kind of stuff that you need for really instituting an effective change, is something simple that works. um
Especially for places that don't have a lot of infrastructure. That's probably a lot more doable than
yeah,
robots.
yeah, that's very true. Similarly, going to like simple, reliable things, the EU has actually looked at improving a lot of its standards for textiles and clothing. More specifically, it's trying to dissuade fast fashion. And right now, it's got a goal for 2030. The rules that they have in place right now, it's something where they kind of set the standards for like energy efficiency for things like toasters, washers, stuff like that. As far as what the article was kind of listing off, but The next step is they're kind of looking at durability and recyclability for like day-to-day wear. The quote that they had was something along the lines of you should be able to wash your clothes more than 3 times without having to throw it away. And
No
right,
kidding.
and this has some pretty big implications because right now about like 3/4 of all of the EU's clothing and textile business is imported from overseas. So if that's something where kind of like with California, like if California sets a rule, it kind of sets the precedent for the US. It's in that same vein of if the EU sets a rule in place for, certain washability requirements, it's likely to have an impact on the world at large. Um, so that was something that is pretty interesting. I have no idea how you would kind of measure for the durability stance, but in terms of recyclability, that's something that you can be a little bit more specific on. Like at least 80% of it must be, say, biodegradable or recyclable friendly.
Yeah, or made from it, or
Yeah, exactly. Some percentage of it has to be this, that, the other. So that's something that is very interesting, and more importantly, is they're working toward a goal of having a like cyclical uh, ecology and economy in the EU. That hopefully it sets a pretty good standard worldwide. Um, Carrying on from that, there's a lot of stuff happening in terms of a like things in law in motion type things. I don't know if there's a good way to put that. I mean, government do as government do. One of the bigger ones was over in Staten Island. The Amazon warehouse out there has become the first Amazon warehouse in the US that has officially unionized. They held their vote, and it's something where even counting for like the the fringe votes that people are investigating, it's something where it's completely in favor. Really, at this point, it just has to go through the government for an official like signed, sealed, delivered. It's done. Um, Similarly, in terms of lawmaking, there are a couple of bills that are going from the House into the Senate for the first one was for a cap on insulin, $35 uh, for your I believe it was the monthly amount is what they were limiting it to. That's gone through to the Senate. We'll see how that goes. And then similar thing, just on Friday, they set a bill in motion for decriminalizing marijuana, which they
federally.
yeah, they had done that back in 2020. It didn't really go anywhere in the Senate at that time. We kind of had bigger issues with the pandemic and the like, but that's something that we're gonna wait and see. There was a little bit of cross-party support. There were 3 Republicans that voted with the Democrats, and then there were only 2 Democrats that voted against the bill. I have no idea if it's for other reasons or not, but there does seem to be a little bit of crossing the aisle for making things happen there. And then the last like governance thing was uh, lynching is now officially a federal hate crime, and that's something where previously it kind of falls under more of a state legislature type thing, and it ties into like the idea that you can't be like double tried for the same crime type of thing. Like if it's murder, it's murder. Lynching is kind of like the group application of it. There My understanding is the reason it hasn't made it this far is it kind of borders on like trying a group of people as opposed to individual actors in the group. Now it's something where it's been officially like signed into law. So if people go about lynching, which you shouldn't be doing, like um that's something that federally can be acted on, which is big strides. It's been something that's been in the works for over 100 years, and it's bounced back and forth throughout that time. So now we've actually got progress with it. And then the last like more local thing that I kind of want to talk about was in West Virginia, which we have an inside joke about it not existing because it doesn't exist. It's a myth. Um, there's some pretty cool news where a gentleman out there went to college back in the 1930s. He's now 101. The school has since been inactive for literally decades. It's now part of a larger like state park, and they actually got together with the people that administer the park. They got to actually speak with this older gentleman. They heard about his experiences like living there before he went up to Philadelphia. This was the first time that he like came back in something like 8 decades, and they worked together with him as well as the kind of school districts there to get him an honorary high school degree because he never actually got to finish. He made it through his junior year of high school before he had to move out of state because they couldn't afford tuition, way back in the 30s. So that was something that was really nice and wholesome. I really do like that when,
Yeah,
because there's not
so
like a good way
nice.
to finish a degree
All
like that.
happened. Totally.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's all a ruse from the West Virginian
Right.
government. It's all propaganda. No,
There is no.
but that's something that's pretty wholesome,
Just a
and
cabal.
and trying to like imagine finishing your degree when the school is gone, like, and not just gone, but like gone for decades. It's a weird like thought process to go down because you do hear people like they'll go and finish things better late than never. You can always, you know, get back into college, start college, finish college, that kind of thing. Um, it's weird to think about that for for like so far back. So that was kind of nice and wholesome. And then finally, there's always Ukraine things. Um, with the Russian-Ukraine war, they are starting to talk. That is progress from, just being outright at war and not even really having discussion. One of the big takeaways is Russia is fine with Ukraine joining the EU, but it naturally does not want them to join NATO. So whether or not that comes through to fruition, who knows? That was the news as of this last week. One other thing that was a very fun highlight is Ukraine has awarded a medal to, and forgive the pronunciation, Roman Hribov, I believe is how it's pronounced. It is a gentleman where on the very first days of the war, um, they were told by one of the Russian warships to lay down their arms, basically go home, surrender, and they had like quick back and forth to each other, like, are we gonna like take this guy seriously, or should we go tell him to go f himself? And the guy's like, yeah, let's tell him. And he goes, Russian warship, go fuck yourself. And that has since become a little
The
bit of
new
both
keep
a
calm,
meme.
carry on.
Yeah, exactly. It's keep calm, carry on. Remember the Alamo. It's kind of become a bit of both a meme and a not a chant per se, but a go-to phrase,
Slogan.
a slogan. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. For the war in Ukraine, and there's tons of instances of people both in military and otherwise that are using this phrase. It's actually like I think one of the best instances is there's actually a billboard with it just written in Ukraine. So that's something that was
I
pretty
really
cool
want
to
to
see.
get that as like a patch for playing airsoft.
Right? Oh my
That'd be a good
gosh.
one.
So that was something that is both really entertaining to see and fun to see, just like the trickling effects, because it's almost a month ago since this started, this whole affair, and to see that it's made as much of an impact and is still kind of carried on since then is pretty cool to see. um Outside of that, we have some holidays, some fun ones. The first one was Hug a News Person Day. Connor, I'd like to imagine that we count. Bring it in, buddy. Come on. There we go. um, Hug a News Person Day.
Christian's side hug. Just gonna
Yeah,
use
there we
your
go.
arm on the
Oh,
other. Yeah, yeah.
that's an old meme. That's an ancient meme. That's like 2007, 2008.
Christian side hug.
Oh,
That
what a
wasn't even. That
throwback.
was just true. That's how you. That's what our church used to tell us. Like you can't hug people
Really?
like
Oh
that.
my
You
gosh.
have to side hug.
I just keep thinking of the like Christian side hug rap. I think is what it was for from Equals 3 made fun of it way
Hmm.
back when with Ray William Johnson.
Oh
That
jeez.
that dates it. That's how old the internet was. That would have been middle school, like early high school for us. Man, way back. So that was one thing. In terms of like food stuff, there's Vitamin C Day, which ties in very well with Carrot Day, as well as
Get you both.
right? You can fulfill both at the same time. Get you your carrots. It's good for your eyes. Apparently, that's been proven
If you coat them in a little honey
questionable.
and then sear them in a pan to caramelize them. Oof.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Oof.
I
It's
oh
really
man,
good.
dude, carrots by themselves, I really enjoy. It's something where
Oh, totally.
I had a like a freaking 2 week crash diet because I was gearing up for a performance with silhouettes, and it was something where like we nicknamed it the Wolverine diet. I couldn't eat just about anything that I wanted to, and so carrots became my new popcorn. I would just have like a bag of like the baby carrots and just munched as I went along. Oh man. Outside of that, there's also cordon bleu day, if you want to get a
Chicken
little
cordon
fancier.
bleu.
Yeah. Oh, that's some good stuff. And then
You ever see the one that the guy and Gordon Ramsay made a guy make that with blue sugar cookies one time?
no, oh no,
There's one of his shows where he got like forced to use certain ingredients and he had to make chicken cordon bleu and it had to have these blue
with
sugar
literal
cookies in it.
blue.
So he
That's
crumbled
funny.
them up and put them on top,
Oh,
like as like bread like crumbs.
that makes
Oh,
sense. That's funny. That's good.
that's my only chicken cordon bleu story.
Oh, wonderful. And then
I've
the
never
last
had it.
the last two, there's Tell a Lie Day, which, given West Virginia's fake existence, I think we've succeeded.
West Virginia is real.
West Virginia is real. And then after that there is Walk Around Things Day. Now, I I feel like Tell a Lie Day and Walk Around Things Day could be connected. The idea of walk around things is literally just hey, maybe avoid the conflict for a minute is kind of the idea of it. And it also mentions like taking it literally. You just like literally walk around people, walk around chairs, stuff like that if you want to go the silly route with the holiday. But part of the idea is like you don't rush headlong into the conflict. It's the idea that like, live today so you can fight tomorrow type of deal. Um, I kind of like to think of like Abraham Lincoln, a big way that he would vent is he would write things in letters. He wouldn't like actually send them. He would write it down and then just like put it in a drawer and just leave it be. That's a couple of ways of like walking around. Or I guess you could go as far as like if you go with Tell a Lie Day, it's like the little white lies where it's like, hey, you know what? We're good. We're fine. Just let things calm down for the moment. I think those could work in
I
tandem.
also
Yeah.
always like it at work. It's when you confront somebody in a bad attitude or whatever. I always say
Yeah.
it's like I just kind of that's always my thing is just kind of just I'm just gonna you can be there. I'm just gonna keep going.
I'm gonna step over this
I'm good.
way.
You
Look,
have fun with that.
go
I'm gonna leave you be.
go breathe for a few seconds. Come back to me in a minute. We'll talk then. Yeah.
Yeah, misery loves company, but it ain't gonna be me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So those are the holidays, and then the fun part. Bartok the Magnificent is what we are talking about today. The prequel to Don Bluth's Anastasia. And boy oh boy, I love this movie.
Great.
We'll jump on to Don Bluth because I know you wanted to say a bit about Don
I just
Bluth
want
in
to gush
that
about Don
studio.
Bluth. Like Don Bluth. I mean,
All those
like
Don
first
Bluth
off,
movies.
like worked at Disney and then is like, nah, doing my own thing. And like
Yep.
and he put out major motion pictures under his own
Oh, yeah.
thing. Like that's a lot off of one guy's back. Like obviously he had people to help
Anastasia,
him, but
which is just award winning
oh, yeah.
all over the place.
I mean, Land Before Time, like
Yep, a
it
whole
just
series for that
Dynasty.
one. All
Time.
Dogs Go to
My
Heaven.
personal favorite,
Pete's Dragon.
Rockadoodle, the greatest Don Bluth movie that everybody has seen and knows,
Oh,
obviously.
No, there is all sorts of good stuff from Don Bluth.
Oh,
So,
dude.
uh, rip in peace to both the man and the studio. The studio was closed down prior to its time, and then since then a lot of the stuff of it has kind of been absorbed by like Fox, for example, which is now I guess Disney. Which in a weird way, everything kind of comes full circle. We have Don Bluth leaves Disney, makes Anastasia as a Disney-esque princess, and now she kind of literally is. I mean, I believe it's on Disney Plus now, which is just weird to think
Really?
about.
Huh.
Good old Disney,
Nice.
the ever growing monopoly,
Sounds about right.
right? Anyway, so Bartok the Magnificent, Connor, what do you think? I love this movie.
Mm,
I've seen it a bunch, and you when we were talking about what you had seen. Originally, you didn't think you had, and it sounds like you may have, but very long ago, maybe in the
yeah,
VHS days.
I was a very youngin because there were definitely parts where I was like, oh yeah, like I've seen that before, like certain scenes. Like for the longest time, there was like I had that with the Dune movie. Like I'd seen this
The
scene and I could
original
never
Dune.
figure it out, and I rewatched the David Lynch one, and it was like, oh, it was this. Okay, that's what that's from. And
Yeah,
it was the same thing with this, where I was like, oh yeah, okay,
like
okay, okay,
it all clicks
yeah.
back together.
But as to the who's and the whats, I had no memory of like what happened as
Yeah, yeah. So,
far
what
as
did
like
you
this
think
point of the character.
revisiting an ancient, forgotten memory?
I love Anastasia, so when this got brought up as a possibility, I was ecstatic. It's only an hour, which is nice as far as
Nice and
just
sweet and short.
easy to get through.
Yep.
Great songs. That would like that's the one thing I can definitely say that it is very on par with Anastasia on is like the music is still
Yeah.
amazing.
I think it's on par, but in a different way. In that, with Anastasia, I would say it's very Disney Renaissance, takes itself a little bit more seriously. It feels more like operatic grand type storytelling. It's a little bit deeper with like the intentions or the lyrics. With this, it's something where the music itself is a little bit shallower. Like it is very surface level, like here's a thing that happens in the plot. um but it is just the variety and the execution of it is fantastic. I mean, you have such a good mix of things where with Anastasia it's I would say very Disney-esque. You have this like Broadway-esque inspired soundtrack kind of through and through, and it doesn't matter what piece you use, it's very much in that kind of vein. With this, like you have kind of different villain songs, each have their own vibe to it. So the very beginning of the movie is Baba Yaga, Baba Yaga, Baba Yaga, where it's like a choir singing this dark, almost like gothic type of introduction
Kind of Notre
villain.
Dame
Yeah, yeah.
in
And
that way where
yeah, it's got
stage.
this very
Yeah.
like grand sense to it. And then later you have a kind of a villain song, but it's like this smooth jazz. And then finally there's a song where it's very almost waltzy, like da 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 da, and it's used ironically. It's not like Once Upon a December where it's this like integral, very like deep emotional moment. It's like, no, this is funny. Also, like plot is happening. Like, oh no, oh no. Okay, here's where we're going. I really enjoyed the music in it, bar none, and especially because each of the pieces just feels different and catchy in a great way. Um, and I think that like going into the plot before we like dive into the storytelling, I think part of like the variety of music made me feel like this movie was one of those shows where they made a movie, but it was really a pilot for a potential like TV series that they like condensed three of the episodes, called it a movie, threw it out there because they didn't go through with the show. That's how I originally thought of it, but having re-experienced it, it doesn't feel like it was that at all, or maybe not at all, but it it felt far more connected and uh self-contained, like full story than I thought it would be. given that it's, one of those direct to VHS DVD type sequels. And that was really surprising for me.
No kidding.
So,
Well, and it is funny because of how much earlier this came out. Because like it's like this came out in like '99, right?
yeah,
So like we hadn't even
yeah.
really hit the renaissance of the directed to DVD and
The
video
sequels.
Disney movies
Yeah.
yet. We
Oh,
hadn't quite
yeah.
got there. So Don Bluth was even ahead on that.
Yeah, man. And it's really for being what this is, for being the tangentially connected movie prequel to Anastasia that almost doesn't even care that it's an Anastasia connection. Literally, it's Bartok, and that's about it. You get a mention of the
But we
Princess
have a
Ivan
theory for you
Romanov.
later.
Yeah, well, we've got a
Have a
whole theory
theory.
of like, okay, what is the deep lore? But besides that, it's something where the the film as a whole is its own little like wrapped package. Like it's its own little present. You put a bow on it, you send it out into the world. Oh, it's so much fun. So outside of the music, um the animation, this is where I think there are a little bit of cracks. It I think it's definitely not quite as beautiful or well constructed, I would say, as naturally this is mid Disney Renaissance, and even Anastasia I think is a little bit more well put together in some places. But even though some of the 2D animation suffered, I will say their use of 3D animation felt really, really cool. Like it doesn't feel unnatural to the story. And I would say the same thing with Anastasia itself, where you have like the train sequence. There's Rasputin's little like evil
It's
vial bottle
vile.
thing. Like those being 3D animated felt otherworldly in some ways, and felt like it's just part of the inset background. And with this, it's the same vibe where in some ways it feels very much like it could have been a deliberate choice of like, no, this is an otherworldly thing. We use 3D animation. There's a very large, and when I say large, I mean like house-sized talking skull. And that's something that felt like it was a very deliberate choice of make it 3D because of that factor, whether it's a money saving technique because 3D animation
Especially when
versus
as a
2D.
kid, that kind of stuff would creep me out a lot more. When
Yeah,
there's like the one 3D thing,
yeah, and
definitely gives things. Oh, look.
no, absolutely. And then there's some other things like there's these large like metal bars that are 3D animated. There's what they refer to as a boulder that just looks like a like steampunk-esque tower of nuts and bolts and wheels and cogs. Like it's that kind of stuff that just it it almost adds to it. It adds to the charm. I would say that it definitely feels more natural than my most recent example is Vox Machina, where they've got a 3D or cell animated 3D
Or like
dragon in,
shifts.
yeah, compared to the rest of the cast, which very much looked like the 2D animated characters. It felt like that was very out of place in Vox Machina in some ways, while here I don't know why. It maybe it's like a painterly quality to the 3D
I think
like
a lot of it
designs.
too is
Yeah.
they don't try to do a lot of organic stuff with the 3D. It's usually like metal or something. Like obviously Skull is organic material, but it's not an organic being that's moving around and doing stuff.
Yeah,
So like
it's not as detailed.
yeah, it does better on the straight edge, simple pattern, sheet metal buildings, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I
that's a
think
good way to put it.
it's not trying to, because with the dragon, even in 3D, that's still really hard to deal with. Like it's easier
Yeah.
than trying to animate a 2D dragon actually, but it's
Yeah.
still very tricky. There's a lot going into it.
Yeah, especially during the time.
Whereas
I
a train
mean,
car, it's a static thing that just moves a little bit, right?
yeah, and comparing that to like
Which is smart,
yeah,
very smart.
and comparing it to the animation techniques, back then you do not really 2D animate. It's still cell animated in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And you just
no.
you happen to have some technology that you can pump out a 3D thing on the side, especially with, Toy Story happening, 4 years prior. now it's something where everything can be done digitally on a computer. You don't really get
Well,
cell by
and
cell frame animation
I
as you
wouldn't
once would.
be shocked if a lot of the 3D assets for this movie were just pulled straight from Anastasia. Like, I assume they probably would have just kept those, like a lot of the more stock stuff in like backgrounds
Maybe,
and such. There's
maybe
probably they, I'm sure, because
there's
that's
some
like,
carryover, or like, all right, you know what? We have a piece of a train car. Let's like
yeah,
double up on itself and then move it over.
literally.
Yeah, they may have
They don't
copy
have to like
pasted
make a
some things.
whole new thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, the skull was new, things like that, such.
yeah. So that was something that it's hit or miss, but generally, honestly, better than even some modern day things. And given that this is, over 2 decades old, that's pretty cool.
I think Anastasia and Treasure Planet will always be the two like gold standards of that,
Of the
of the
3D
2D and the
2D
3D.
blend. Yeah.
Yeah, those are really the for my money.
And then another thing was the cast is delightful. It is so
Okay.
much fun. I feel like
No John Cusack, unfortunately.
no,
That
but
is
yeah, I
devastating.
mean, it's something where I mean, Bartok, same as he always was. I mean, he is no different in in Anastasia than he is here, which is just
His
fantastic.
voice
And
is so
then
great. Like I wish I could do a voice like that for like D&D characters and stuff. Like, oh,
yeah,
so perfect.
and then you have Zozie, who is Bartok's bear friend companion. You
Business partner.
yeah, business partner. Baba Yaga, who uh, I think manages to border the line of that character really, really well. And then you have Ludmilla, who's just like delightfully not arrogant, that's pompous, I think is the word I'd use. Like very much, oh yes, I'm the aristocrat that is hiring Bartok to go investigate the prince's disappearance. And all right, go dear hero, go find Baba Yaga. Like just very I would say pretty much all of the performances in this are very like campy, hammed up in a very, very entertaining way. I mean, you have Tim Curry as a giant talking skull that spits riddles. Like,
People are just giving it away. They do not
yeah,
care. They're
no,
they're out here.
everyone's here to have fun, and that's really a good way to put the movie as a whole. So, going into the plot, uh, this is where we'll be a little bit more spoilery. This came out a while ago, but given that it came out a while ago and it's a spin-off of Anastasia, if you want to
If
go
you care about
experience this,
spoilers for
yeah,
this movie, just stop talking to me,
it
please.
exists on YouTube. Go watch it if you really
If you're
want.
actually gonna complain
If you
about
really
spoilers for
care.
Bartok the Magnificent, like just don't even come back.
There's that
Don't even.
weird that the like 3-man crowd.
Just leave. I'm
Oh
good. We're
man.
good. Thanks
So
for coming by.
yeah, exactly. So
Forget to like though before you leave.
yeah, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell.
Hit the noti
share it to your
bell.
friends and family.
Only none of the percentage of our viewers are subscribed
Yeah, there you go.
or unsubscribed.
Man, I don't know if we even get enough that we have a metric to go by. But yeah, so the plot in Bartok the Magnificent. Baba Yaga is awesome. I mean, she's built up pretty heavily at the beginning of it, and then it turns out that she's just a massive red herring that is just an old lady that, yeah, she might be a witch that
Classic.
casts spells and stuff, and she's not the most sociable of people, but at the end of the day, she helps with no regard to being rewarded. And that's awesome. That's very wholesome and very fun. Um, I really liked that element of it. And then the fact that story wise, it's something where Ivan disappears. They think it's Baba Yaga. They even like there's an iron tooth. It must be Baba Yaga. Plot twist. It's not. It's Ludmilla who is the prince's advisor,
Like
and
assistant.
yeah, yeah, and it's very much the Jafar vizier type position is what
That's
Ludmilla's
fair.
in.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is Bartok saves the day by figuring it out, and she's like, "Oh My God, my minion is a goddamned idiot. I told him to get rid of the prince, and you know what he does? He locks him in a tower, and it's almost as much of a surprise to her as it is to everybody else in the room, which I thought was
Which
really
I
funny.
love too, because like that's kind of like the evil queen from Snow White. She tells him to go take care of him, and he doesn't
Yeah,
get it because he falls in love. But the Don Bluth one, he's just an idiot.
yeah. No,
He's just doing
that's
comedy.
exactly it. It's one of those things where it's just like, what? You said to do it. I did it. Look, it's no longer
Remember
a
this,
problem.
friends. Loyalty and competence in the same person is hard to find.
Oh, without a doubt.
Hence why I've been with this man for 10 years.
And
More than that.
it's purely because we're not loyal to each other. We just know better that we weren't gonna find someone else. That's what
Yeah,
it is. That's
the
what it is. Flip
loyalty
the
comes
script.
from like desperation.
Loyalty out of desperation.
But to
Oh.
quote my man Lionel Johnson, loyalty is its own reward.
So that's the gist of the plot, and it's interesting because in terms of like it's a weird mix of hero's journey and also the theme of what's happening. It's
Well,
very
I like this one in particular because it's like the Pretender's hero, kind of like almost like
yeah,
Bilbo from
yeah.
Lord of the Rings, where like he's not like
A
he isn't really the
burglar.
hero. He's made yeah, he's just Bartok, and like that's the whole trick with his bear. Like he fights this bear in the show, but people don't know the
Yep.
bear is actually a trained bear because of course it's Russian circus bear, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's how he
and
gets it all set up.
yeah, he
And I always love that
explains
personally.
like the entire intro to Bartok is him singing, the titular song Bartok the Magnificent. It's literally him like lifting a 10,000 pound dumbbell, and then you look on the other side and it's hollow. He flies up into the air. He does his kung fu and karate chops an inflated dragon that he just pops with a needle. Like it's stuff like that where he's talking about all these grand feats that he's accomplished that are just hearsay, silly goof stuff. Like, and that's the end of it. It really is something where the kind of grander message that comes about this movie is that you don't judge a book by its cover. I would say it's that tenfold. Like it really does feel built in from the ground up all over the place, because Bartok, he's this little bat, but deep down he really is a good person and a hero, even if it's something where he's like scamming people by doing just cheap magician trick stuff. At the end of the day, he does actually have what it takes to be a hero. And
Well, he's
Baba
willing to
Yaga,
do the right thing when the opportunity presents.
yes, and the fact that Baba Yaga like goes to test him both to like get materials for a potion so she can just outright show him where the prince is, but it's also testing if he's up to the task of saving this prince that has disappeared. And when he goes through each of these trials, it tests a different facet. So one of them is very much an ingenuity type thing. He has to try to get the Pilaf, I think is her name. It's this little
Yeah.
like weird snake thing.
It's on the cover of the
Lady,
VHS.
whatever, that's stuck to a big metal iron piece of work. It's very steampunky, and and what ends up happening is they like he sets up this whole like 5D chess what is it, the Rube Goldberg machine type thing in order to get the entire metallic structure that she's stuck to out of the little frozen area and back over to Baba Yaga's home. And what ends up happening is once it gets warmer, she just pops right off. Like that was the
Just heats
first
up.
task. Is it's just like, ooh, that sucks. And then the next one after is getting a crown from like this like fire goblin, basically weaponsmith thing,
As you do.
as you do. And that one, it could have become a test of brawn, but instead it's a little bit of outthinking things rather than ingenuity. It's a little bit more like of a sleight of hand type motion. So he does a little bit of juggling and he's like, check it out, and then flies under his crown so that he can then roll away with it. And then the last one is, all right, you have a feather. It's way in the air. And oh, by the way, I'm magic. Ha! you can't fly now. Meh, 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 meh. All right, go get the
Yeah.
feather. And
You know,
and what ends up happening is he builds a tower in order to to climb up to the top and get the feather, using
Bartok.
the metal piece of steamwork conglomeration boulder that they keep referring to from the first trial, and then the very tip of the crown. There was a jewel that Baba Yaga wanted. That was it. That was what she kept out of the whole affair.
Yeah.
Uh, and so he uses the crown to like actually get atop the very tip of the tower to get the feather, brings it back, and then finally the last one, and this one was like, oh, it's such a nice wholesome moment. Is she looks at him and is like, all right, I need one last thing from you, and he's like, well, why didn't you just tell me? You had me do all this stuff. You had me flying. You had me going. Yeah, but both like he gets so flustered by this. He brings out all of this other stuff, and she's like, nope, 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 that's not going to work. That's not going to do it. That's not going to cut it. And then finally she just starts laughing, and he just goes on a tangent. He's like, you're a mean old hag. No wonder nobody likes you.
You liar and a cheat.
You liar. You swindled me out of all of this effort. Her feelings get hurt, and she just kind of secludes off to a corner, and Bartok's like, oh shit, I messed up. I shouldn't
Did the
have done
thing.
that. Yeah, I went too far with it. And so he goes up to her, she's crying, and he's like, hey, I didn't mean any of it. And he starts to tear up too, seeing her cry. He ends up starting to cry as well, and
So sorry.
and that's the like moment where Baba Yaga's like, you have what it takes, and he takes one of his tears and throws it into the cauldron with the rest of this potion, and he's like, what was it that you needed? And it was the ability to show compassion that really sets him apart as a hero, in addition to like all of the physical trait stuff that he went through. So it reveals the location. Oh, it's in the tower back in the castle, and he goes, oh, great. All right. Well, now we have the answer. And at this point, he realizes, like, you never did take the prince, did you? And she's like, no, everyone just assumes that I'm evil and did the bad thing, but I never did
Baba Yaga is like onion, has layers.
Has layers. We're talking about how some of the structure in this, it feels very much like Shrek, in the sense of there are more layers to be revealed of each individual character. So you've got Bartok, who's the street magician but is a hero at heart. You have the bear, who everyone assumes is this like ravenous wild monster, and he's like this distinguished English gentleman. I am just here doing actoring. Like I'm here for the script.
Like Clayface from Harley Quinn.
Yeah, very much like Clayface and Harley Quinn. Oh, it's fantastic. It very much hams it up. You have the giant menacing skull that size of a house, and he likes riddles. And Baba Yaga,
Tim Curry,
this very played by Tim Curry. The gem. And then you have Baba Yaga, who's really just a lonely old woman that isn't very sociable out in the middle of nowhere, that everyone hates for some reason because Matt. Oh, it's like the fear of the other. She's a witch. She's a witch.
Question mark. We don't really know.
And then finally, and this is where the plot goes, there's Ludmilla. So the Grand Vizier, the Jafar to Ivan the Kid Romanov Tsar. She turns out to be the one that kidnapped him. She sent one of the like guards to, all right, you're in charge of this. You need to get rid of him. And his solution was, I locked him in the tower. Look, he's gone. Like, he's not your problem. And she's like, yeah, but I wanted him dead. Dead, I say. What do you mean he's in the tower?
Out of the way.
Yeah. He's like, what? You said out of the way. He's out of the way. I put him in the tower. So at that point, she locks Bartok away. She's pissed at both of them. She throws him into the prison, and Bartok was given a potion from Baba Yaga that will reveal your inner self tenfold. And
it's the super serum from Captain America.
Yeah, if it's something where if Bartok, if he were to drink this, he can take on any challenge for getting him out of the tower. Well, she takes it. and drinks it. And she's like, I am going to be the most beautiful,
So
wonderful
beautiful.
creature in all the land. Everyone will praise.
I
Like,
I thought
here's
she was
where
pretty.
the real Ludmilla comes out, is the term. She turns into a dragon, which is
A
so
wingless
thematically,
dragon.
yeah, so thematically appropriate though. This large dragon, like vain, greedy, etc.
And then she like goes all bestial mode and like freaks out, starts burning everything down
Oh
because
yeah.
that's what was on the
She
inside.
walks in the door and goes,
Course.
"People of Moscow," and she burps fire because there's got to be a burp joke. She belches some fire, looks down at the floor and sees her reflection as a dragon, and goes on a murder spree. She's like, "All right, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I signed up for." And Bartok, now lacking the potion, gets freed from his bear friend Zozie, and from there he ends up using pieces of what he had learned before. So the like fire demon thing, when he gets away from him, he falls into the river. He puts out the river, but the flame is done. He looks at that there's the larger tower that the prison is set in, and essentially how Ivan is sent to death along with the guard that failed his mission in Bartok is they're just going to be chain lowered into a filling flooded water basin, basically, that just keeps rising and rising to flood the chamber.
I
Well,
think it's like a well tower.
yeah,
Something.
yeah, something like that. So what ends up happening is uh Bartok taunts the dragon, kind of like how he taunted the large like ogre goblin looking thingy. Taunts the dragon, going over to the water, has her like destroy a chunk of the tower so all the water goes out and puts out the fires that she's been lighting all over the place. And then they end up climbing up this large tower to get to the top. And he literally references it word for word, like, "Hey, I've been there, with trying to get a magic feather. It's tough trying to get to the top of the tower." And so she climbs up to the top because she has broken part of the tower lower down. Very much kind of like how it's a little bit of like a Rube Goldberg machine making this all happen with moving the boulder before. Boulder, the steampunk metal thing that Pilaf was stuck on the top of. By setting all of these wheels in motion, she gets to the top of the tower and have a nice trip. See you next fall. The thing just goes timber and crushes the dragon, and he's the hero of the day. And it's
Baba Yaga puts his name up in the sky.
yeah, very, very. I mean, it directly it uses the sound of a plane, which I thought was hilarious, but
right.
Very much one of those moments, or like the like
Classic
Happy
magic
Halloween,
Disney
Merry
character.
Christmas in Nightmare Before Christmas. It's that kind of moment. Um, they have a nice little heart to heart, fly off into the sunset type thing. Uh, Very, very nice story. Very fun.
Now here's
very weird. Yeah.
the thing. This is. Did we ever discover when this was set? Did we figure that out? As we were debating.
And now the conspiracy begins.
So now Bartok takes place Bartok the Magnificent takes place before Anastasia, as it is
yes,
a prequel.
We know it's a prequel, and this raised a couple of questions because there is like hardly any direct connection to Anastasia, with one exception. Prince Ivan is Ivan Romanov. He has the same name as Anastasia, and we're like, is Ivan her dad? No, that's apparently Tsar Nicholas is Anastasia's dad. So we're like, all right, we got to get down to the bottom of this. So we go through a bunch of Wikipedias to find the official like Anastasia wiki, and there's nothing really connecting the two. And then we go into the real world lore because Anastasia is based off of a real person. It's based off of the Russian Revolution and all of that. And Anastasia takes place, 1910s to 1920s. You actually see like, modern day quote unquote cars, like there are vehicles driving in the streets of Paris. They have electric lights. It's definitely more modern, if it's not assumed that there's a year in Anastasia. I don't remember.
Well, I assume somewhat after the Industrial Revolution.
Absolutely. Now
I know,
with
astute.
with Bartok the Magnificent, we don't really see any modern day tech. Not really. We have chains. We have like the most modern thing is Bartok's little like sail cart house thing he's got, where it's like a mobile stage with a sail for for wheeling down a
The
road.
weird little
Yeah, but like
wooden plank thing.
when the I forget the term, but when the Russian soldiers on horseback, Cossacks, I think is that the term?
Oh, the Cossacks.
Cossacks, yeah. When they go to catch him, they're on horseback. They're not like driving cars or anything to get to him and escort him back to the palace. So that's kind of what we're working with. Is this seems very pre-industrial, with the exception of like this weird steampunk moment that where Pilaf is stuck on a metal tower of some kind, but it's also like in a slightly more magical realm. It's in the Iron Forest. So, unrelated? Who knows? Now, here's the part where we went, okay, have we gone too far down the rabbit hole? Ivan Romanov
Yes.
is a real person. However, Ivan Romanov, the only Ivan Romanov we could find in a quick Wikipedia search, died in like the 1600s. Bartok the Magnificent is not just a prequel to Anastasia. It is several hundred years before Anastasia. And now this raises a question. How is Bartok around in Anastasia? Well, there is somebody named Rasputin who uses magic, you know, sells a soul to the devil. What if Bartok is actually...
Who's a nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
Movie.
Yeah, and he's kind of a nice guy in the next movie too. Really, like he's not about the whole kill Anastasia thing. What if Bartok is really a bat that is like several hundred years old? There are two ways that this could happen. One, he's friends with Baba Yaga, so maybe Baba Yaga has something to do with it. Or two, it has something to do with Rasputin. Now,
which might be why he works for him.
Which might be why he works for him. Now, one like part hiccup weird thing is it's like, okay, now is Rasputin how Rasputin is in the real world? In which case he would be like 1800s ish. So does that mean that Rasputin is like a reincarnation? Like maybe Rasputin is either a descendant or the like hellspawn something reincarnation of Baba Yaga? Who knows?
I'm gonna say that he's like Connor McLeod from Highlander, where he keeps like stealing names. And that's where it was.
He was
around, but he wasn't Rasputin.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So there's the theory. Bartok is somehow hundreds of years old and manages to go from 1600s Russia, pre-industrial age, and appears in Anastasia because magic, sorcery, and necromancy.
Some sort.
Of some variety.
There you go. There's the fan canon.
I love this fan theory headcanon that we've come up with to explain why why there's an Ivan Romanov, and assuming that it isn't just like a name change, like it's not like Tsar Nicholas's uncle happens to be
Join
Ivan.
us next week for the fan fiction we're gonna write, obviously.
Yeah, there you go. We're gonna go through the entire Baba Yaga descendant line of titles.
We need a weird
Dread Pirate
ship,
Roberts, Baba
What's
Yaga.
Our weird ship. We need a weird Zozo and Baba Yaga, ex-Baba Yaga.
Yep. Zozie and Baba Yaga.
Yep.
No.
That's our ship.
Here's the proposal. Ready? Rasputin works for the Romanovs, is very antagonistic, of course, in the movie. Yeah. Ties into like the real world counterpart actually being
yes.
part of that. Hear me out. What if Rasputin is the descendant of Baba Yaga and the guard that failed his job and locked Ivan in a tower? Dun. Now it's a family line of people betraying the Romanovs. And one of them happens to be magic. There it is. That's the headcanon. It's the, what? You said he wanted it to go away. Not very socially adept guy. You have Baba Yaga, the non-socially adept like grandma in the forests. I think there's something there. It's fantastic. I love it. Anyway, so
Great time.
that's our podcast, everyone. Connor, where can we check you out?
As always, Flashing Connor on YouTube. Watch some random crap that I throw on there. It's totally not just a repository of video evidence of things I want to show my friends at all. Hit me up at Pokemon Showdown Nonsense Narrator if you want to catch the hands, or at Bait Cleric on Steam if you want to catch the hands in KOF.
Get
You can't
'em.
handle. I just got my new guy, so my whole team is stacked. I got Gato coming now. Like you kids are not going to be able to handle the amount of damage these guys put out.
Absolutely. And then
So busted.
as for me, naturally, there's here on the podcast Narratives and Nonsense. We post on Mondays around 6 p.m. Mountain Time, or there's a couple of places you can find me. There's Gilded for the Win here on YouTube. That's my own personal channel, link below. Same with Connor's channel, of course. And then we stream, it would be Wednesdays for Kingdom Hearts. That's myself and my buddy John, where I am guiding him through Kingdom Hearts and the grand story of those video games. Also on Sundays with my buddy Marcus, who is guiding me through the Halo games. And then actually tomorrow I will be joined by this here fine gentleman Connor, because we're going to play Lego Star Wars and I'm so freaking hyped for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be so good. So that's this Tuesday the 5th. Prepare. And then finally, if you are really frisky, I joined the same friend Marcus, who's guiding me through Halo. I am guiding him through Knights of the Old Republic Star Wars, and that's on his channel on Twitch, Eldritch Bunch. He lied to me for weeks. He lied to me and everyone we were broadcasting to and said it's Eldritch Funky. That's in some other places. On Twitch, it's Eldritch Bunch. So that's Knights of the Old Republic if you want some Star Wars fun that isn't Lego. And beyond that, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. It's been a good one.
Take her easy. Do something magnificent.
Magnificent.